Julie, thanks so much for coming to the studio.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Couple of topics today. Where do you want to get started? Let's start with this, with the good story, the one that doesn't make me froth at the mouth.
This one makes me froth at the mouth. But
Molly Hemingway.
Yes.
And actually, this does the story itself will kind of annoy you.
Yeah.
So Molly Hemingway is this wonderful person. She's married to Mark Hemingway.
Yeah.
Great people. They live.
She's a great writer.
Yep. They live here in the D.C. area.
Yep.
And she's on a neighborhood listserv, right?
Right. Molly and I live very close to each other.
Okay. By the way, I think I'm not on a neighborhood listserv, and I never was when I lived in a
because
place
your
that had
neighbors live.
one. But I like the idea of this.
Yeah.
It's a good way of communicating with your neighbors.
Yeah, only someone who doesn't read a listserv in this area would like the idea of a listserv.
Really?
Yeah, if you're conservative in this area, because it is just this like liberal love fest on these listservs. So it's tough to take sometimes if you're a conservative living in
so the idea
very liberal
of it,
area of
the
Alexandria.
idea of it is better than the
Yes.
practice of it.
Yes, you think of like, oh, it's all just like potluck and recipe swaps and, good thing. No. It's sometimes that's what it, like, it's a lot of leave on the curb, like here's a bookshelf or a rocking chair, but it does offer opportunities for some frustrating topics.
Okay, so one of these frustrating topics was a couple of kids.
A group of kids,
ages, let's say 9 to 11, 9 to 12, something like that, right? We're going around asking if they could mow yards.
Right.
And
do yard work.
And a woman was like, is it just me, or are these kids a little young to be working? This bothers me. I'm very concerned about these kids, and I don't think this is right. Something should be done. We need a law. We need to do something.
Right. Well, Molly had put up on her, or Molly was responding to something she saw in her listserv. As you mentioned, this woman puts up a note saying that she's concerned for the safety of these children who are, roaming around the neighborhood looking for odd jobs. And, Molly said, she had done mowing. Her brother did mowing. She did yard work when they were growing up to get sort of walking around money, right? Candy, stickers, buy a CD now and then. Or, and so, she writes that these kids should be applauded for, sort of this entrepreneurial spirit, and that this hard work, they'll learn things. They'll learn about business and earning money and the reward of work and making your own money. And, instead of sort of complimenting these children, this woman puts up this note saying she's very concerned about these roaming gang of children looking
prepubescent gypsies. They're invading the neighborhood,
looking to
to
remove their
leaves.
toes by mowing people's yards. So Molly just, she had a really great piece up on the Federalist. It's a new online magazine. I encourage everyone
to. We had David Harsanyi on yesterday.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Well, Molly's piece is really, I think, will really strike a lot of moms and dads because it really talks about, I think, a lot of the frustration of not just conservatives, but common sense people who read these listservs and see these like warnings of danger and kind of roll their eyes. What's great, though, is Molly actually wrote back and said, look, people, let's calm down and, think that, remember that these are lessons that growing minds need about, how to earn their own money and hard work. And she says that she got some responses back from people, but it was all offline. Nothing on the listserv, but she got some encouragement offline in private messages from people. And she goes into a lot more detail, but I took that as the most important lesson that, the saying says that all politics is local, but we might even drive down a little bit more. I always talk about school boards and how important school boards are, but I mean, it even starts on these types of community. People talk all the time about how there's a diminishment in like civic and like clubs and bowling teams and things like that.
Right.
Well,
bowling alone.
maybe this is what's replacing it. And I think as conservatives and frankly as common sense people, not necessarily just on the right, but just people with a shred of common sense, sort of owe it to their communities to get on these listservs and remind people that danger doesn't surround us nonstop.
Absolutely. And you can be very effective there because, again, people who know Molly, I think, like Molly.
Yeah,
so I'm sure that her response actually meant a lot. It carried weight with these people. What's disappointing are the number of people who could reply privately to Molly, but who didn't feel like they could take a stand and just say, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
It is okay for...
I'm going to defend those people. As a wimp on the listserv, I see things, I observe things all the time. I kind of wrote a list of my favorites. I blogged about Molly's piece, and I wrote about a few sort of my favorites. Every summer, some innocent guy will put up a a sort of newbie to the listserv will put up something about, hey, any recommendations on how I can get rid of mosquitoes in my backyard? And, he's sort of bombarded with the messages of how he needs to do it with non-chemicals and non-toxic solutions. And then, people talking about bee colony collapse and butterflies. I don't respond. I often just stay quiet and kind of roll my eyes. But, I think Molly really, I think she encourages people to maybe be a little bit more vocal.
Okay, let's split the difference here. You don't have to respond to every bit of inanity that you see on the listserv. I think we can all agree. You can't, because then you become the person who's just spending way too much time attached to the listserv. But when you see Molly or someone like Molly stand up for common sense, it is okay to publicly. We need to publicly just say, yeah, I agree with Molly. It shouldn't be private.
Yeah,
just
you
say,
can support people.
And you don't have to get into an argument. Say, listen, I'm not here. I don't have time to debate.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, Molly, thanks for saying what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
We can at least have that courage.
Right. I think I'll do that.
I think you should. All right. You ready to get angry?
Oh, yes.
You ready to start frothing?
Yes, and this is a perfect segue. I mean,
it really is.
This is the kind of thing where on a listserv you could mention the totally unreasonableness of certain people in certain neighborhoods.
Absolutely right. I mean, you talk about all politics is local. Well, here we go. In Virginia Beach, Virginia, we had a couple of kids before school the other day. We're out in one of the kids' front yard. Now, Mom had said, don't play with the gun. So the kid was disobeying Mom here.
Right, which is really the biggest crime. That's it.
Right. But they have what was originally described as airsoft guns, which to me, that means the gas-powered stuff, you wear the mask and it stings if you get, ow, that hurts.
Yeah.
But no, apparently these were now pneumatic, like air-powered guns that I assume would be hand pumped. They're apparently the zombie hunter. So they were shooting little like pellet at the target on a tree in the front yard. Apparently a couple of the kids got plinked. They continued playing with the other kids, so I assume it was no big whoop, right?
No ambulances were called.
Right. The bus is going to be coming in a few minutes, but they're not at the bus stop. They're at the kids' front yard.
Yeah.
So some nosy neighbor calls 911 and says, oh, Cameron, do we have that 911 call? Is it ready? Okay. Well, we will have, I think, heard this.
Okay.
I can't share it with you
That's
right
okay.
now. But anyway, what she says is basically, there are children playing with toy guns in the front yard, and I know that they're fake. I know that they're not real. I know that they're toys. But it bothers me.
It bothers me.
I don't think that boys should be playing with guns, with toy guns.
Unbelievable.
And so the police come out and don't do anything. And the police have sort of, in their police speak, made it known that they really don't consider 12-year-olds playing with, this stuff in the front yard to be like a big deal. Please call us when someone's breaking into your home. Or, like there's an actual crime occurring.
Yes, right.
So, but then the school somehow hears about this. And even though this didn't happen on the bus stop, didn't happen on the bus, didn't happen at school, kids were suspended, they had a hearing yesterday. I don't know the outcome. I've not seen the outcome reported, but facing expulsion for the rest of the year over this, when I don't even see how the school should be involved in this whatsoever.
I can't believe this.
This is our state, by the way, Julie. This is our state.
Yes, I know.
We can't
Virginia
pawn
Beach,
this
too.
We can't pawn this off on Massachusetts. We can't even pawn this off on Tacoma Park, Maryland.
What an incredible waste of time for everyone. I mean, the police, it's a waste of time for this child. This child is obviously going to, be under some scrutiny, his parents. It's a complete waste of time for the school. Does the school have nothing better to do? Maybe they could teach. This is outrageous. This is utterly outrageous. And that woman who thinks that it's the police's role to, alleviate her of her being uncomfortable. I mean, this rates up there with, crazies who call 911 because McDonald's doesn't have chicken nuggets at 10 a.m. I mean, this is the same level of...
Right. Yeah. And I absolutely agree. And...
Of course, I'm sorry.
Here, I lived... when I lived next to a neighbor... and I'm not going to name names.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I can't.
I'm just kidding.
But they didn't like kids.
That happens.
And I felt bad for them because they owned their home, and when they owned their home, most of the kids in the neighborhood were sort of teenagers, and then all of a sudden, new wave of families move in, and every one of them has small children, and so we could field Little League baseball teams just in our little cul-de-sac area, right? They hated kids, and they would complain to the HOA all the time if we didn't put the kids' toys away away. Oh, yeah, all the time. The little little plastic adjustable basketball hoop that you can roll around and stuff, leave that out overnight, sure to get a complaint from the HOA.
P.S. My backyard looks like the Titanic debris field. Okay, constantly.
Oh,
I mean, honestly, it is toys strewn, and I can't ever be bothered to clean them up because the next day, it's the same thing. So yeah.
I look, I feel for those folks. I do. But here's the thing. It's your problem, and you have to deal with it. It's not society's problem to say, "Oh, Julie, we offended Gladys Kravitz. We better. What do we do?"
Well, there are retirement communities. People need to move away if they hate kids because kids are not illegal in this country, and they are allowed to inhabit certain neighborhoods.
Exactly.
But you can move. There are actually neighborhoods. My parents are looking at these neighborhoods are 60 and above or 55.
Yeah,
I
heard that. I heard a commercial for one earlier today. And it was like a weird.
No, I think it sounds awesome.
It was a weird term for it, like age with you homes or something like that. I don't. But
I want to live in one, but I can't right now. But I aspire to this. But anyway, the point is, I mean, kids are not supposed to be this terrible inconvenience to neighbors.
Exactly. And so what do you, and again, I know everybody's going to talk about the school, and we will too.
Yeah.
But we talk a lot about parenting, and we've been talking about neighborhoods today. So what should happen to this neighbor? Not that the mob should show up at her house.
The listserv should explode with criticism for this nosy neighbor. Look, the neighbors have to understand that there have to be consequences for this kind of nosiness. I mean, this woman shouldn't be invited to any potlucks, and she certainly shouldn't be sort of considered a part of the community as people should want their communities. I mean, this woman is an outlier, clearly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I maybe there needs to be not a mob, but a group of neighborhood moms that go and talk to this woman and say, "Listen, here's the thing, Gladys. We don't want to cut you off from the potlucks. Like, we don't want to shun you, but we will, and we're prepared to. And so you need to understand that our boys are going to be boys, and our girls are going to be girls, and they're going to be kids. And this is a neighborhood where we let our kids be kids. And that's our values. If you don't share our values, then Gladys, you can't be in our community. You may live here, but you're not going to be a part of our community."
I'm not going to defend Gladys here. I'm definitely not going to defend Gladys. However, I think in some ways there has been that parents have such a diminished role in our culture now. Yep. We don't think parents are responsible for feeding their children. The schools can do it.
Right.
And I mean, it also sort of betrays the school's idea here. The police dismissed this as ridiculous,
they did.
Right? And the police were clear, look, lady, you need to calm down and call us when there's a real crime. Yet the school thought it was appropriate for them to get involved after
possession
the police
of a weapon and right.
And it shows the school. And I know we need to talk about other thing, but I mean,
no. We've talked about Gladys enough. Let's talk about the school.
That is so obnoxious for the school to present itself as some sort of law enforcement agency that goes up that can overrule what the police say and sort of take this nosy neighbor's side and really hurt this child. I mean, ultimately, this is something that this child is going to have to live with, or these children are going to have to live. I think it's more than one child, right? That's been suspended.
Yeah, two.
In the same family?
No.
Okay. I mean, these children don't need this on their record. They don't need this stigma. This is terrible.
This is absolutely right. I mean, look, neighbors are one thing, and you deal with neighbors as neighbors.
Yeah.
You talk with them as individuals and people that you have, these close relationships with. When you're talking about a school district, now this is when, every parent, as far as I'm concerned, every parent that has a child in the Virginia Beach school district needs to understand what your kid does at home could get them expelled from school.
Facebook. And if your kids put a picture up on Facebook of them holding a gun, it's happened before.
Right. So if you're cool with that, then stay apathetic. Don't care. If you're not cool with the idea that your kid could be expelled from school for something that he does or she does in your living room, then you need to go to the next school board meeting. You need to say this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but be careful. Remember the story of the guy who got arrested because he asked a question at a school board meeting for questioning Common Core.
Okay, then
don't forget, parents out there, the school board meeting. You got to be careful when you ask questions because someone might, someone might drag it.
Like, was he rude about it?
No, he wasn't rude about it. The school board asked that the questions be posed in writing. He approached them and said, "No, I'd like to talk about this." And some off-duty police officer who was not wearing his police uniform approached the man, and the guy sort of flinched when the guy grabbed him, as I think any normal person would, and he was dragged out of there and arrested. He didn't get out of there until like 3 a.m.
And charges have been dropped.
Yeah, charges have been dropped, but still he sat in the police station till 3 a.m.
All right. Well, then Julie, can I quote Charlton Heston to you?
Oh, yes.
In one of my favorite speeches of all time, Charlton Heston's Winning the Culture War.
It's people. Sorry, not the right one.
He says, I'm asking you to disavow cultural correctness with massive disobedience of rogue authority, social directives, and onerous laws that weaken personal freedom. But be careful. It hurts. Disobedience demands that you put yourself at risk. Dr. King stood on lots of balconies. You must be willing to be humiliated, to endure the modern-day equivalent of the police dogs in Montgomery and the water cannons at Selma. You must be willing to experience discomfort. He said, now I'm not complaining, but my own decades of social activism have left their mark on me. So that's the thing, people. It's not you do have to get off the couch, and it does hurt, and maybe you get arrested and you get thrown in jail on trumped up BS charges for a few hours.
Yeah.
But maybe that inspires other people to get off the couch and say this is wrong, and I'm standing up and I'm speaking out too.
Yeah, and what that school board did to that dad, and he was shocked when it happened. You could see, what they did to that dad is they set him as an example to the other sheep that were sitting, because nobody got up and followed that guy out.
Right.
Not to do this because you'll also go to jail. So,
Julie Gunlock, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. We'll talk with Julie again next week here on Cam & Company.